Start? No?
Yeah.
My name is Borja Burgos. The talk today is Docker for, I probably need to stay close, Docker for developers. A little bit about me. I work at Docker now. I'm a product manager for the Docker Cloud team. I came to Docker through means of an acquisition. I was working prior to Docker at a company called Tudum.
It's awesome. I just love Tudum.
So Tudum was it's not, it is anymore, a container platform. We started back early days, 2013. Nobody had really heard about containers, let alone Docker. And so I helped co-found that company, CEO, and then transition over to Docker about 8-9 months ago, where I do Docker Cloud. Background in engineering, I am now a product manager, but I still like to mess around with engineering and development as much as I can as possible. Okay, I'll stay back. So today, I do have to advise you, this is the first time I do this talk. I'm actually going to be talking about, and if you saw the OSCON presentation recently by Solomon Hykes, where he open sourced VPN kit, HyperKit, and DataKit. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that, Docker for Mac, Docker for Windows, the Docker developer experience, what that means. I was so excited about that stuff that I'm like, you know what, I want to talk about that, and maybe I can plug in a little bit about automation, CI, CD in the cloud at the end if we have time. But I want to present a little bit about that to you all. Before I start though, I'd like to, probably everybody raise your hands. We are ContainerDays, so I'm sure everybody does something or the other with containers, right? So everybody raise your hands. Keep your hands up if you work on a Windows or Mac. Did anybody bring it up? I think like a couple people. So you're most likely using some sort of VM. Keep your hands up, keep your hands up. Bring your hands down if you have never had any issue whatsoever running that VM or with the networking, opening a port, publishing a port for that container. You have some proxy that you have to get around with. File storage, you have to make sure that the files are. So it's funny because people always say you can bring them down now. That's what I'm going to be targeting, right? People always say how developers is what make Docker, how the Docker experience on the developers will make it great, yet it's a pain. You start running as a developer your containers on your Mac or your Windows, and you have to worry about all these proxies, network, file storage, a VM that's crashing, that's not crashing. So if you take a look at the current state of things, there's this thing that we introduced called Docker TOOLBOX. And what Docker TOOLBOX did is it brought all of the Linux binaries for Docker together into one installer. Boot to Docker as a virtual machine, and the Kitematic UI to control everything. But it still was a Linux toolbox. It was a Linux toolbox that had some enhancements to make it easier to install on your Linux, on your Mac or Windows box. But it was still a Linux tooling. It lacked installation upgrades. It still made the experience very complicated, and performance due to the file sharing was a pain. If you had to develop on your Mac or your Windows and then have those changes reflected on the VM, it was slow. So things of that nature. I had to suffer through this for, I don't know, about a couple of years at least. So we went back, the team went back and said, how can we make this better for the developer? We understand most of the developers that are working on Docker and developing these Docker applications are on a Mac, are on a Windows. How can we make that better? And that goes back to that presentation by Solomon Hykes just a few days back at OSCON. So what I'm going to talk to you about is Docker for Mac and Docker for Windows. Because I am on a Mac, I'm going to be demoing Docker for Mac, but most of what I'm going to be showing today is also applicable in the Docker for Windows beta. How many people have heard about the beta program? How many people have applied to it? Probably people have heard about it. How many people have been accepted on it? And they are running Docker for Mac or Docker for Windows today? So about 6 of you guys. Awesome. Keep your hands up if you like it. Those that are using it. Okay, so just about all of you. So the goal here was the installation of the pain in the ass. How do we get an easy native OS 10 or Windows drag and drop type installation How do we have a secure sandbox virtualization environment? How do we do without any of the networking issues, right? Every time I went to talk to a customer, to a client, to a partner, and I talked to those developers at the company, they said, you know what, we cannot use Docker in our laptops because we have a proxy, because we have some VPN, because we have some network configuration, and it's a pain to open the port on the VM, it doesn't expose publicly. I cannot develop my applications in this network environment. So how do we do with all that? And file sharing, of course. So first, virtualization. If you're familiar with virtualization, I have to say that I am by no means a subject matter expert. Most of the virtualization software out there runs in the kernel space. But, and again, specific to OS X, there's this thing called the hypervisor framework. It's actually an undocumented framework available in OS X. Some applications already take advantage of it. You may have heard of Xhive, which is based on FreeBSD's Bhive for virtualization. So Mac, Apple, Mac OS X exposes these APIs to userland to make use, to enable applications to virtualize. Now we took advantage of that hypervisor framework to build Docker for Mac application. This code is open source. It's available in GitHub, docker/hyperkit, if you want to take a look at it. So everything happens, or just about everything happens in user space. And processes are not run as non-root. I'll demo this in just a bit. You install the application. Again, it's a simple drag and drop. You open up a terminal in your Mac. Terminal, iTerm, whatever you prefer. You type in Docker, and boom, it works. That's about as simple as of an installation as you can get for a Mac user. It bundles a Linux distribution. It's a minimal Alpine Linux. It takes about a second to boot up, which means that as soon as your laptop is ready to go, you can start working on it. So I'd like to demo, I actually wanted to demo the installation of it, but then I was thinking this morning, you know, if I uninstall it, then all of my images are going to be gone, and then when I'm demoing, I have to do all these Docker pulls, and the network may be a little iffy, so I didn't actually install it. But let me go ahead and see if I can you see that all right? Let me exit out my iMessages. So this is what you get. So the DMG, and you got it off. Now, I'm not going to do that because I already have it. But if you go, sorry, then you see right there, that's my Docker binary, 11.1, beta 12. And you see it here at the top. It's a little, let me exit out of that. And you'll see that it takes just about a few seconds to boot up. Okay, there you go. You see the little containers moving up and down. And that's it. There's no fiddling with VMs, no fiddling with network settings, file storage. It's running. Docker is running. You can configure a few settings here and there, automatically check for update, which is great. You don't have to worry about, oh, there's a new release. You get a notification, hey, new update, click a button, updates, you're good to go. Your containers remain, you can exclude that, of course, so try to do that on Time Machine. And you can do a few settings here and there to, depending on what machine you have, how many CPUs you want to use, how much memory. Now, if you can do that, I'll simply do a Docker info. And there it is. Simplest installation again for a Docker binary. I have 9 containers running, running version 1.11. The memory that I made available to the VM, 2 gigs with 4 CPUs, and running on an x86 architecture. I think I'm just going to make a so then about networking, right? I was going about, you have a VM, you're running Vagrant, you're running VirtualBox, you have your Docker VM in there, you run an application in it, and what happens? Your ports don't expose, you have to have a specific IP for the VM that you're running, trying to connect to. you don't know that IP, you run into application, you try to do an OAuth application, it won't connect to it. Well, I want to, this is, what is for this? So there's this translation layer built into Docker for Mac. Again, this is all the dark magic that you don't really have to worry about, that is there, that takes care of everything for you. When you do a Docker run, anything that's network related is translated into the host's native network stack. No worry, you don't have to worry about, well, is this going to be intercepted by my VPN? Is this going to be working through a proxy or not? It simply just works. And I'll do a quick demo later where I'll connect the container. I'll simply run the same container. I'll get my IP, my public IP. I'll use a VPN on the OS level. So I'll connect to a VPN from my Mac. I'll run the same container, get the same public IP, and you'll see that it works just out of the blue. So I don't have to worry about, wait, my host, my Mac is running on a VPN, but my container is running on a VM outside of it. Is it going to have public access to this VPN or not? It just works out of the box. Again, it goes back to that sort of black magic that works out of the box. And similar for ports exposing. The ports are exposed and binded on the local host, on the OS 10 host. I expose a port on my container, and Docker for Mac will do the binding on the actual OS X host. So I can run a container, expose port 80, I can do localhost port 80, and it works. Let me do a quick demo of that. Okay. I'm going to go back to, otherwise I cannot see my notes. All right. Can you see my terminal, everyone? Yep. All right, so I just did a quick run Alpine. I'm going to do a update. I want to install the wget. All right. So that's my current public IP, right? That's the IP of the machine that I'm getting here. Now I have a couple of VPNs, one at home, one at my parents. I'm simply going to connect using the built-in VPN client for Mac to my house. I'll do that, and I'll run the exact same command, and hopefully I get an IP that's in New York, or not. Just all right, perfect. Well, I don't get an IP anymore. Let's try with a different one. And this is why they call it a beta, I guess. I tried this yesterday. There you go. Well, Spain worked, so maybe my VPN in New York is wrong. So I got an IP. I'm sure that if anybody checks, that's an IP in Spain. It's the same container. It's running a VM. It's running Alpine Linux. It's in my Mac. I didn't have to do a thing. I connected to my VPN in my Mac, not in the VM itself, and all the routing and the networking worked. Now, ports, right? Port exposing, port publishing. What I was talking about earlier, port 80. Very simple. I'm going to run a simple image here, docker cloud / hello world. Nope. And that's because I'm missing the container. So think about the things you got to do before this. And name already taken. Let's call it hello 2. All right. Host 80. I cannot see. All right. Now, again, this may not seem like much. I run a container, I'm accessing it. You may have seen this demo 500,000 times in the last 2 years. The fact that I'm accessing my computer on localhost, that I didn't have to configure a thing on networking, that I was able to do this through a VPN. Again, with that, it talks to me a lot about all the plumbing that is going on underneath. And it's all about the developer experience. Keep this in mind, is that I may have just heard about Docker yesterday. I may have just heard about this whole container revolution 2 days ago. I go in, I download this thing for my Mac, for my Windows. I can hit the ground running in a minute. I do not have to worry about looking up on Stack Overflow, hey, my container is not exposing, but I'm running this port, but it's not running by the file system, but the VMs. It just works out of the box. And trust me, there is a lot of plumbing and some hardcore systems engineering underneath to make this happen. Again, I invite everyone to check it out if you're really interested in this on the open source, the VPN kit, HyperKit, and Data Kit. So the other demo that I wanted to do on this is around file systems. So we demo the virtualization stack itself, the networking, and the next part is the storage, right? So for storage, mappings, user ID mappings, all that is handled automatically for you. You don't have to worry about, hey, I set permissions on the Mac and I have to set permissions on the VM, but it's not working for the container, automatically managed for you. File system events are there so that if your application has to wake up when something changed in the file system, automatically it's there. So you'll see that I can modify something on the Mac side of my file system. It's automatically reflected in the container side of things. Same, vice versa. So if you're familiar with iNotify daemon on Linux, you'll see that I'll run a container, and as I'm modifying things on Mac, the iNotify system is going and showing the notifications for every file that I touched. So really great stuff. I'm going to do without the demos because it's too chaotic. So let me just jump to the demo directly. For this, all right. Okay, so first, let me stop that container. All right. Oops, and I have to pull an image. Hopefully it's a small one. So here you can see I'm just running a simple Nginx based on Alpine. I'm mounting my ContainerDays folder onto the HTML folder in the container. And just gonna take a little while to download. Oh man. Wow. Dial-up speeds. I have another task, which is the one that doesn't require. Alright. Give it a second. While this takes place, if you haven't yet signed up for this and you are working on Windows, you are working on Mac, beta.docker.com. Simply click on that. You'll be added to the list. Go ahead. I am. Oh shit. So it's not going that slow, right? It's just going through Spain. Oops. We'll see what happens now. Will it crap out? Will it continue? I don't think I've ever done that. I think I might have to restart the download. Come on. Show us your magic. It actually wasn't that bad though. Going all the way there, coming through here. Alright, I think I'm gonna stop it. Now, actually, I used to run into all sorts of trouble when I did this before because it would keep some layer opening. Let's see. Oh man. Do I have internet? Alright, let's restart the daemon. Where is the daemon? I cannot even see it. Is it there? It is running. There you go. Wow. Thank you. And it should be running. Localhost. Alright. So I have this. If we go to my folder, developer, ContainerDays, there's index.html, cd, developer, ContainerDays, more index.html, and all right, let's name that. I can just change that directly to here. Again, this is right on my Mac. Right, come back to my browser, refresh, and that's that. So super simple, no need to set up any file storage, share, network file, server, nothing. Simply change the file. I can work on my code locally using my IDE or my Mac, and the changes are reflected in real time on the container. Of course, it's an application that you have to compile. You're still going to have to compile it. But if you're working on a simple web app, you need to change some content, changes are reflected right away. The second demo that I have to demo some of the file system functionality and the bidirectional communication between the two is that I notify one. So for that, I have, let me exit out of here. I've got this file, very simple. I'm just going to be mounting my current directory on the container. I can simply touch files, modify files from my current directory, and we'll see on the other window, the container window, how those changes in the file system are being triggering notifications on iNotify inside the container right away. And to show you the Docker file for this, it's again a very simple Alpine image with the iNotify tools installed. So super simple image. All right. Hopefully this one is installed. So built and should be running. So that split vertically. All right. There you go. So as I create, as I move, as I modify files, the notifications are simply piped over to the local container file system in the iNotify. So if your application depends on file system changes, more so than checking for changes itself, using the local, the Linux-based iNotify system notification, you can depend on that. And same way backwards. So the file system changes are reflected over to Mac maybe the moment they take place. Again, if you think about what you had to go through just a few months ago to set all this up and the pain that it was for a developer, just having this at your disposal is huge. The other thing that I wanted to show you is multi-architecture. So this is actually one of the coolest features that I think we have. But if you ever try, you go to the Docker Hub, right, and you see some images, resin images, some PowerPC images, and they're in the hub, right? So up until recently, the hub only supported Linux x86 images. So you say, oh, I found this resin image. What is it? And you try to do a Docker pull, you try to do a Docker run, and it just won't run because it was not compiled for your target system, right? So check this out. Just that one command, I was able to run, and again, think about all the complexity that's happening actually underneath. A resin base, or Resin is a company that does Internet of Things container deployments. It was compiled for ARM, so I'm running my Mac. This is a Mac. Last I checked, Apple doesn't make ARM laptops yet. And simply run a resin-based, an ARM-based Debian image on my Mac. So there's of course some voodoo magic going on here. Really under the ropes, it's QEMU that's allowing us to do this. It is being emulated. It's going to be a little slower, but it works, which means that if I am developing for Raspberry Pi, I can now develop for the Raspberry Pi using my Mac, locally, using my tools, using my IDE. I don't have to SSH into another box. I can compile natively from my Mac, and I can grab that binary, send it over to the Raspberry Pi, and it will run. As a developer, that saves me so much time. And it's not just ARM. So if you say, well, I work with PowerPC-based machines. There's an image here, it's a PowerPC 64-bit, same thing, just runs, one took a little longer. So again, this is being emulated today. There are some fixes and some improvements happening, but I'm willing to bet that even though it is being emulated, it's still running faster on my laptop than it will run on your Raspberry Pi. So if you're developing for an embedded device, you might as well just simply work here, develop it, compile it, and push it over to your devices. Very, very simple. All right. So that's all of the Docker for Mac stuff. Again, if you haven't signed up, check it out at beta.docker.com. Just log in. You'll get an invite hopefully very soon. If you don't, ping me. I'll try to accelerate you getting that invite. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about was Docker security scanning. So as a developer, I put up things in my application, but I don't really know what's in there. If you look at most of the images, the containers that we work on, they usually start with a from statement, from some other image that somebody else developed. I'm going to start working on my own. What does that really have? Is there some vulnerabilities in there that I need to worry about? So we recently launched Docker security scanning, and I want to show you a little bit about that. The way it works, you push an image to the hub, to the Docker registry. The hub will automatically analyze all of the layers. What's cool about this is that unlike other services, we don't only look at the bill of materials. So we don't only look at your YUM or apt-get list of things you've installed and their version number, and then contrast that with the CVE database to say, hey, X binary libxml2 has XY vulnerabilities. We actually do a deep scan of the binaries themselves. So if you have some statically linked file, those will show up as well. So it's not just about the things that you install and the things that are in the BOM, the bill of materials. It's also about the things that you're statically linking. It's also about the binaries themselves that are part of the image that will scan. So I want to show you just, what's the time? I think it's 11:50, so I have about 7 minutes. Is that it? Nobody knows. I don't even know. I want to show you really quick what this looks like and how it can be helpful for developers. So for this, I am going to jump into cloud.docker.com. This is the Docker Cloud service. Pardon the resolution. And I've got this security demo repository, and it doesn't have any tags. So really quick, let me make that bigger. I'm going to grab something that I know is good to go, Alpine. And I'm going to tag it as Borja security, what do you call it? Whoops, no, security, what's the name of it? Security demo. So I'm gonna grab that tag, Alpine latest, Borja security demo. I'm gonna call it Alpine, and I'm gonna push that. Hopefully this time it's not going through Spain, and it'll be much, much faster. All right. Now if I refresh my browser, and I check this repository as a tag, the scan's already taken place. That's because we already know, we already have Alpine, so the Alpine scans have already taken place. We are able to associate that, so we don't really perform a scan. We already know the bits. And there's no vulnerabilities. It's a very simple image with 0 vulnerabilities. That's kind of cool. Another thing that I forgot to mention is that, well, my image may be static, but the vulnerabilities are not, right? Vulnerabilities are always coming up. There's Heartbleed, right? Well, I didn't change my application, but Heartbleed was found we'll send you notifications. So we're only always checking the CVE database to say, hey, this component that was not vulnerable to any known vulnerabilities 3 months ago, hey, guess what? Now it is. So we'll send you a notification to give you the opportunity to go ahead and change that. Now, if I grab a very simple image, if I can pull it up. So I've got a file here. I'm going to go back to terminal. CD developer ContainerDays. Let's see. Alpine. All right, so I've got it. It's from Alpine, and the only command that I'm running, I'm just going to do an APK add libxml2. Simple library. I could be using it for a number of things. I'm dealing with XML data. Docker build, Docker file, and tag it as Borja security demo libxml2. And I forgot the period. All right. So I built that. Very easy. It's the exact same Alpine that I just pushed a minute ago that had no vulnerabilities. I'm gonna now push it. Security demo libxml2. All right. So really just push 2 megabytes, which is probably the size of libxml. I'm going to go back to the UI. Now that's scanning. Hopefully it won't take too long. It's just a few bits. And what we'll find out is that simple, if it shows, when I was going through the demo, this took about half a second, is that libxml that I put in there actually has known vulnerabilities. So as a developer, I may have introduced something that I thought was, well, a library to deal with XML data. Well, how harmless is that, right? And now my application is actually vulnerable to some of the CVE's vulnerabilities just by introducing that. So as I am developing, as I am working with my teammates on this new application, it's a very easy way to see what the security stance of our application. Now you couple this with Docker Content Trust, which I don't have the time to go through today, which enables you to sign your application, and now you have end-to-end, not only you know exactly who built your application, who signed it, you know that it has not been tampered with, and you know the security stance of your application to any known vulnerabilities as they become available. So that's pretty great. As a developer, I don't really have to worry about security. When it goes over to the ops team, it's just a thumbs up, good to go. Let's do a refresh. I'm just gonna. And then the other thing that I want to show you, and we're like really going against the clock here, is a continuous delivery flow. So as a developer, right, I've got my Mac now, Docker for Mac, great, I don't have to worry about anything, I'm working on applications, but I want to make sure that every Git push automatically gets deployed to staging, that builds are happening, that tests are happening, that it gets scanned, and that there's anything wrong with it, I get notified. So what does that last part of it look like? In Docker Cloud, I've already set up an application that's running. It's called ContainerDays Boston. It's a very simple application, 3 services, web, a Redis, and a load balancer. I can check the application on this endpoint. Again, simple hello world with a counter, and it's load balancing across 3 different containers. What happens if I go through here? This is my code. I'm just going to change the image statement. If I can find the image to replace it with, I believe it's this. Let me go ahead and I cannot see anything. All right, I'm just gonna put that there, save it, go back here, CD, CI/CD, git status. All right, I changed that file, commit A, change, picture, save, git push. And now we go back to cloud, we'll see that a simple git push actually triggered, you see the notifications are there, an automatic build. So I did a git push, build, again, nothing new, we've seen this for some time now. There are actual tests in there, so a very simple test that's going to check that when the application runs, there's actually something that says visitors:1. which means the application stood up correctly, the Redis itself stood up correctly. If those tests pass, simple integration test. There's hooks. You can do a post test, pre-test hooks, post-build, pre-build hooks, post-pre-push hooks. And then once the image is pushed to the registry, the application that's running off of it, that web application, is going to be automatically redeployed using a rolling update to my staging environment. So again, end-to-end, I was able to very quickly, in less than a couple minutes, do a git push. We'll see if the demo. We should be able to see that the build is taking place here in staging. And we'll see as soon as that takes place, if I open another window, that my application will automatically be redeployed. So I'll go here, services, and we'll see web redeploy. While that takes place, let's go back maybe to the repository, see if our Alpine libxml2 got scanned. And there it is. Okay, so it's scanned.
Hey, can I ask you to switch the mic to this one? Just a better sound.
Okay. And then, so there's we see exactly when the vulnerability was introduced. APK update add libxml. That's introduce a vulnerability. If we click on it, we can find information exactly about the right CVE, the state of it, if it's critical or major. Click on it. I can find information about what this actually means to my application. Super simple, super easy. And again, if that security posture were to change, I will get an email notification saying, hey, new CVE found, it affects your application in this many ways. The application, you say, now we'll go back to the deployment. So we just finished the security scanning, we'll go back to the redeploying of the application. On the right-hand side, my web is redeploying, is doing a rolling update of my containers because the image finished building. It finished building, it does a redeploy, the redeploy was successful. If I go back and refresh, we'll see that now the application that I was running is actually, Web 2 is still running the old version of it because it's a rolling update. It's going to take a little while for all containers to be updated, but Web 1 is running the latest and greatest version of the application. Okay, I'll stop there. Sorry, it was so chaotic. As I mentioned, it was the first time I was doing this talk. Touched on a lot of things. Now I know that next time I do this, I need to cut about half of the content from it. Sorry about the video and the presentation issues also. Hopefully you took some away with you though. Docker for Mac, Docker for Windows really does change how you work on containers on your laptop. Continuous integration, security postures, something that we're really looking into. I'll take, if there's time, some questions now. And sorry, I was so last minute. Go ahead.
So one of the benefits of doing it natively on Linux was that you get at container IPs themselves. Can you do that with Mac, or they?
So there's a DNS set automatically. You can do a compose containers can talk to each other. Is that way?
If the port isn't forwarded, when I talk.
Yep.
Okay.
And I went back to the slides. All right.
Thank you, Borja.
And thank you so much, everyone. Sorry, apologies for all the chaotic presentation. Thank you.